Today on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat, we meet with the experts at Armstrong Nautical Products to fabricate a custom engine bracket for the 25-foot Hydra-Sports project. FS Boating editor Dave East meets with Dan McCarthy to discuss the restoration of his classic Super Hawaiian flat skiff.
Today was the first time you actually put the boat in the water. I was really impressed with what you did with the little boat. It did great, it ran great.
And MCU's paint specialist works to bring an aging bass boat back to life.
So the Ranger bass boat pulls up in the yard today, and all I can think about is, oh God, no, not me.
All coming up on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat.
All right, so we're going to recap on the 25 Hydra-Sport that we're building for Rick Weinstein. We've got the structural glass work all done, the recessed speakers, new fuel tanks in the boat. It's ready to rock and roll. The paint job came out really nice. The boat's really come a long way from when it came into the shop. Now we've got to get ready to bolt the bracket on the back. Last week, I spent some time with Armstrong Nautical Products to measure it up and to get it just right for the transom of the boat. So once we get the bracket in, we'll be able to get it installed on the transom, get the boat rigged with the motor, and get it one step closer to getting on the water.
Before an Armstrong bracket can be made, the customer must provide a completed bracket order form. Using this form, the measurements of the transom and details of the boat are inputted to a CAD, or computer-aided design program. The specialist here is able to locate the propeller's happy spot, which allows for optimum performance and efficiency. The bracket's dimensions will be built around these exact specifications. To begin the fabrication process, raw materials are collected. Only marine-grade aluminum is used. These pieces are cut to size and bent to shape, according to the work order. Once all materials are prepared, they're sent to a bench where a welder tacks them together, forming the skeleton of the bracket. It's then sent to an enclosed area or office where a MIG welder, concerned with overall strength and water tightness, applies the final welds. Special protection must be worn during this process. Here, the serial number is also permanently stamped into the aluminum. The welded bracket is then sent to another office, where all flat surfaces and welds are sanded smooth. Radiuses are rounded, and it finally begins taking shape as one solid piece. From here, it's moved into the quality assurance area, where holes are drilled and checked for proper location. Also, it's given a final fairing, eliminating scratches and marks made during the fabrication process. The bracket is then moved into a paint bay where it's sprayed with primer. Once primed, it's ready for paint. The painter applies multiple layers of a marine-grade finish, colored depending on the customer's request. After drying, it's taped off and a layer of non-skid paint is sprayed onto the deck. The completed bracket is then rigged based upon request and prepared for shipping.
All right, so I sent one of my guys over to Armstrong Nautical Products to pick up the engine bracket for the back of the 25 Hydra-Sport we're building for Rick Weinstein. As soon as that bracket gets bolted on that Steve's prepping for right now, we're gonna be installing one of these 300 Yamahas on the back, 4.2 liter, and I'm excited to see how this boat's gonna run. It's really gonna be neat. As soon as Steve has that motor bolted on, we're able to rig the wiring into the back of the transom, and then he can move forward with the rest of the work.
Yeah, I just got this 25-foot Hydra-Sport from the paint shop, and now it's ready to come into my department. I do all the wiring, I do all the rigging, I do all the electrical work, I do install the brackets, trim tabs, whatever. If you want it on the boat, I'm the guy that's going to be putting it on. They call me the legend. Known worldwide. Okay, the first step I did was mock the bracket up to the transom of the boat. Once I found center line and the correct height that the bracket is going to be, which is very important, because you don't want the bracket mounted too low, because then you're not going to be able to get your engine up as high as you need to. That's the whole reason of having a bracket on the back of the boat, is so that you can get the engine up out of the water and have less drag. Once I determined the height that I took, I remove the bracket off the stands, and all the holes that I had marked, why I hide it up there, I pre-drill. The reason I pre-drill is to see if I'm going to be able to through bolt all my bolt holes. A lot of times you will have to use a few lag bolts, which is basically like a self-tapping screw. You may run into stringers that you're not going to be able to through bolt that hole. So that's why I only drill with a smaller hole. Once I determine all the ones that I'm going to be through bolting, I go ahead and drill to the proper size. Then I applied the 5200 adhesive sealant on the whole footprint of the bracket. It keeps the water out of the bracket, which is very important. You don't want your bracket to fill up with water because it gives you more flotation too. We put the bracket back up on the back of the boat once we got the 5200 sealant down. I ran only 2 outside bolts in. A lot of the transoms are going to have a crown in them, so you're not going to be able to get that bracket perfectly flat on the back of the boat. You may have a little gap on each end. That's the importance of getting all the bolts in first before you tighten anything down. You work from the center outwards as you're tightening them down. That way you can get the bracket squared to the back of the boat. Then we want to let the bracket sit for a day or two before hanging the engine. We want the transom to settle into the bracket because I want to come back and hand tighten every single bolt one more time.
When we come back, FS Boating editor Dave East meets with Dan McCarthy to discuss the build of his one-off Super Hawaiian flat skiff. This segment brought to you by Marine Customs Unlimited. You dream it, we build it.
We do it all. Custom fiberglass repair, upholstery and canvas work, custom dash panels, specializing in insurance claims, Suzuki and Yamaha sales and service. We do it all. One-stop boat shop, home of fantastic plastics and the fiberglass shop.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us during this one man's Dreamboat ride-along, where we feature boats and their owners whose dreams have already become reality. FS Boating editor Dave East heads out with Dan McCarthy to discuss the build of his Super Hawaiian flat skiff, designed around dreams of fishing skinny water.
The boat is a 1970 Super Hawaiian SHX 15. I found the boat on Craigslist. It was actually one of these, basically a potted plant on the side of some guy's house. He was selling for $25. I was between boats at the time, and I was really just looking for something to, just get back on the water. So I was just thinking of basically a John boat. So just seeing the hull like that was, fine. I was thinking of just, slapping some seats in it and old outboard and, go fishing. But I didn't like the hatches. I wanted real hatches. So that kind of is what started it into its progression where it is today. I built molds for the receivers, and actually, built actual real hatches to go in there. The main hatch right now has even got carbon fiber on the backside. So it, it got a little fancier than just some, wood and some fiberglass. The transom was only 15 inches, so one of the first things I did was I built the transom up to a 20-inch height, because most of the motors that are available and the tiller and stuff are pretty much going to be 20 inches. The mahogany that's on the boat was another Craigslist find, so it was $1,000 worth of wood for $100, so that's when I decided to start adding some of the pieces, and it kind of makes it a little more yacht-like, I guess. The spray rails are more or less a necessity. Flat bottom boat. It's going to be pretty wet in most, kind of choppy situations, so the spray rails were kind of a no-brainer. The tow rail on there, I like to fly fish. So when you look at the boat, everything has been countersunk and is flush mounted. There's nothing sticking up. There's no tow stubbers across the entire deck. The boat's a 1970, so I started looking at boats from like the Keys, guide boats and stuff from back then. That's when I came up with the pod idea with the tow kick, having the recessed tow kick all the way around it. Gives you more room. You can stand up inside the boat and still be able to maneuver around without, be limited in a small space like that. And then the mahogany backrest was, I have a 10-year-old daughter, so she needed some place to sit and something to hang on to. So kind of became a cross between the modern, grab handles and a backrest for her to, you know, have a place to sit and be secure. The main thing I would say would be whatever you think it's going to cost, double it. Whatever the amount of time you think it's going to take, triple it.
Well, Dan, I wish we could have stayed out longer on the water. I mean, the weather kind of pushed us in, but I was really impressed with what you did with the little boat. It did great, it ran great, it fished great. Today was the first time you'd actually put the boat in the water.
That was the maiden voyage.
And for as good as it did, there's still a few things I think now that we looked at that, for weight distribution especially.
Yep, small boat.
So, yeah, for anybody doing a project like this, you know, it's going to be a work in progress.
Got a few things to do. You know, just CG. We're going to move the gas tank forward like that. Small boats, weight distribution is obviously real important. And there was a couple times when it was venting a little bit, and then a couple times in turns where it was cavitating a little bit. So a little bit of prop work I think you can do. Yeah, different
prop, or even you've got the hydraulic jack plate. You can adjust your engine height up and down, and that's part of just learning the boat.
Right.
Because you have no benchmark to go by. It's not like anyone else has that boat out there. So everything you do is going to be the first time.
Well, I definitely won't be seeing a bunch of them at the launch ramp.
No,
for sure.
You're going to stand out a little bit, yeah. So what are your plans for the boat? What are you going to be doing with it? What kind of fish are you going to be fishing for out of it? Where are you going to be taking it?
Well, this is an inshore boat for me. I'll be doing the river. We live up off of the North Fork of St. Lucie, so we'll be fishing up in there. The IRL. We also used to live in Key Largo, so we like the Keys, and it's versatile. You know, that's one thing that's nice. It's small. It can launch on improvised ramps. It doesn't really, it's everything about it is simplicity and ease of use.
And it held the weight great. I mean, even with both of us on the bow, that boat performed fantastic. It wasn't tippy.
Yeah, true.
Well, I want to get out on it again as soon as this weather allows.
Yeah, if we can get these clouds out of here, we can get some more fish.
Well, stay in contact with us. I want to see, once you move that CG, I'd like to get back out on the boat and run it again with you, and maybe we'll catch a couple of fish other than a stingray and some jacks.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was still a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
With an initial purchase cost of $25, after adding $2,000 in custom modifications to the hull and spending $6,000 on an engine, the cost of Dan's Dreamboat comes to a total of $8,025. When we come back, we head to Birdsall Marine Design for the 25-foot Hydra-Sports project. This segment brought to you by MyFWC. Life jackets save lives. Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. With the 25-foot Hydra-Sports moving into the rigging process, we head to Birdsall Marine Design.
All right, so Steve's got the 25 Hydra-Sport ready to rock and roll. We've got the Armstrong bracket mounted on the back. We're ready to start to rig the boat. The next big ticket item that we've got to install on this boat is going to be the T-top. Now, back in the beginning when Rick first got the boat, he made sure he implemented some things, or was telling me to, on the top. I said, you know what, I need to put you in touch with Bobby at Birdsall Marine Design, because Bob can then take all of his ideas and dreams and implement them into his top and make them flow and work with the boat really well. I'm excited to see where we're going with the top, because it's going to be really nice when it's all finished.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet Rick. He's got an older 25 Hydra-Sport that he's been fixing up, and kind of discussed some of the different features that he was looking for, shade, style of top, and just some stuff for his family, and just to make his boat more user-friendly. In talking with Rick, we discussed Birdsall builds many different style tops. Our most popular top is probably a single bow top, and there's also a double bow top. He chose to go with a double bow T-top, which was the right choice. It fits the era of the boat. We had talked about, do you have kids? And he had some younger kids, so we wanted to get as much shade as we could without overpowering the boat with sunshade. We didn't want to look at the boat and see T-top before we saw the whole boat. It was important that we try to keep the deck clean. We ended up rolling the legs into the console, and Rick was fairly tall, so that's another concern. You want to make the top adequate for the end user. And for resale, you don't want to make it too low, but you certainly don't want to make it too high in the seam. Some of the things that we discussed was, the materials Birdsall uses in building their tops. We use bright dipped anodized material for the pipe. It comes in different sizes, depending on the size of the legs and the shade size. We ended up going with Weblon canvas, which is very good. It comes in different duplex colors, which is kind of inviting. You've normally got like a white on top and a color underneath, which dulls out some of the glare inside the boat. As far as lighting, Rick chose to get the LED lights, which is very popular, work very well. We put one on the front of the top, we put one on the back of the top. We also put a tube light underneath the sunshade over the rocket launchers, generally where it's placed. Another thing that we did do for Rick was we installed the heavy-duty outrigger plates, and it's an extruded plate that's purchased that gets welded in place, and it allows the customer to install a mechanically fastened outrigger system in without any hassles. In talking with Rick, he was interested in a leaning post combination live well. The older boats, most of the live well systems were below deck, and some of them at the time weren't overly big. A lot of guys live bait and need the additional bait storage. You don't have to bend down and get on your knees to get the bait out of the well, So he chose the 40 Baitmaster, and it worked really well.
When we come back, Brian at MCU takes on restoring an aging bass boat. This segment brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Yamaha's next generation V6 4-strokes are changing the game.
Mid-range power was awesome.
Fuel, the burn, it's unbelievable.
Couldn't believe the speed and the fuel economy. It's pretty impressive.
I couldn't believe the power. It was like it was more like doing a quarter mile on a drag strip.
And them things are like, it's a whole nother game. So I made the switch.
Experience the difference for yourself during the Yamaha Discover V6 Offshore Demo Tour. See why we call it the Game Changer.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us as the paint specialist at MCU works to make a classic bass boat shine like new once again.
All right, so we had a Ranger bass boat come in for some detailing work into the shop. The clear coat was all compromised, and as we were buffing along the top cap, the metal flake was actually lifting and coming off, and it was getting into the pad of the buffer. So I had to call the customer to let him know we've got to attack this at a different angle. He's authorized me to go ahead and redo the top cap. The thing is, I haven't told Mike that he has to do that yet, and I know he hasn't done it before, so he's gonna have a hard time understanding the process. He's gonna get a little nervous probably. So I'm gonna explain it to Mike how to do it. We're gonna go over the process. I'm gonna have him shoot some test panels. He's gonna do fine. I'm not worried about it.
So the Ranger bass boat pulls up in the yard today, and all I can think about is, oh God, no, not me. And sure enough, Brian comes around the corner and says, hey, we gotta redo the glitter on the bass boat. I personally have never done it. Not that I won't do it, but I just never did it. And I tell him this, he's like, yeah, it's easy, just do it. I mean, the boat was in good shape, but the biggest problem was where he had it backed up. The bow of the boat sat out in the sun all the time. It was under a garage, but it got sun beaten, and that's where the glitter was pulling. When I peeled that tape back, he lost it. So no, we gotta fix it. We gotta fix it now. So I went back there, started looking at it. I had to get online, do a little research, call a couple of my old contacts I've known for years. Figured out kind of the idea of what to do with it. I mean, you think about it, you see this glitter, and it's like, who does that? You don't see advertisement for, oh, hey, I'll re-glitter your bass boat. There was multiple different colors. It wasn't just a solid green. I mean, you had the silver lining, you had a black line. So all I did was I taped off right where the glitter line's at. Then I had to peel back the quarter-inch fine line to where I had that valley for the black and the silver flakes to go in. So once I peeled all that back, I taped off the green flake, sprayed the black. What that did, instead of building them up and staggering them, I was able to actually lay them in like a trough to where it was all one even layer. So I had to spray the green down. So all I did was I taped the black off, and I just went ahead and mixed up the glitter, and I kind of just dusted a coat over the whole thing to give it a fresh coat over what was there. With the gel coat, when you spray that gel coat out with the metallics, it's so raised and lifted, and it's really like a non-skid finish. Then you gotta spray clear over clear over clear over clear on top of it to get a good buildup. I did that probably about 3 or 4 times before I got the whole thing covered up to where I could then start the 800, 1200, 1500 buffing and polishing. You definitely have to be careful though, because too much wet sanding or too much buffing, you burn through and you ruin the job. And you're back to square one, having to respray the clears and get your buildups back. You want to start off at a heavy enough grit sandpaper that you can actually break down the rough gel coat, but you can't do a heavy grit like you would done a 120 or something like that. You got to start off with no less than a 600 area as a good spot to block it all down. And by the time you get to 1200, it's like a piece of paper, notebook paper. I mean, it's really, really fine sandpaper. With the finer sandpapers, when you're doing a dry sand, it clogs the paper up. When you put a little water in and add a little soap, you know, it gives it a nice little film that when you start sanding on it, it gives it just a better all-around finish. And the sandpaper will actually last longer, in my opinion. When you bring the wool pad out, and you put the compound on, you start buffing it. Basically, it's putting a finish over the whole top, and that's really your final step is the foam pad, is the wool pad. I mean, you can go crazy and start foam padding and glaze finish and everything else like that, but on a gel coat boat, you do a wool pad with the compound, and you're fine. Once I finished and I wet sand and buffed out the whole thing, I was really impressed. I mean, it came out beautiful. You take a boat that just looks eyesore horrible, and you do this kind of a work to it, and it comes out looking like $1 million. You know, it opened my eyes on how well it could actually come out on a bass boat. I hope the owner will be happy with it, because I know I am.
All right, so just as I thought, Mike laid out the top cap rail on that Ranger bass boat without a hitch. All the colors matched, they blended, they flowed really nice. It went 1, 2, 3. He got it wet sanded, buffed out. It looks beautiful. Boat's gone, it's delivered. Customer's super happy.
Next time on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat, we meet with Taylor Mason, the owner of a 23-foot sea craft who has dreams of fishing the reefs off the Florida Keys. Dave East heads out with Tony Eden, who fully customized a 24-foot Pathfinder for sight fishing cobia and tripletail. And we head to Birdsall Marine to fabricate a custom T-top for the 25-foot Hydra-Sports build.
We get the 300 Yamaha installed, then we can go ahead. Oh, Frank. You're just walking in front of the camera, I'm filming. All right, so I've got a, what do we have?
Action. Okay, so here we are today.
Each month, turn to Florida Sportsman for the best in boating and fishing coverage.